And now we really have to say it clearly. This was never just some cute little LeBron is still good at 41 story. No. What just happened against Houston was way bigger than that. Because the Lakers did not survive this series by accident. They did not sneak through because the Rockets got unlucky. And they definitely did not win just because LeBron had 1 or 2 hot scoring nights. They won because, at 41 years old, with Luka Dončić out, with Austin Reeves only partially available, and with the entire offensive identity of this team basically ripped apart on April 2, LeBron James still found a way to control the series anyway. Lakers finished the job in 6 games. And in the closeout, he gave Houston 28 points, 7 boards, and 8 assists. Like this was just another spring on the calendar, and that is the part people still keep missing. What made this impressive was not just the production, it was the way he did it. Because if you only look at the box score, you'll come away saying, yeah, LeBron was great. But if you actually watched the series, you saw something much scarier than great. You saw a 41-year-old player basically solving possessions in real time. You saw a guy who no longer has to overpower the game to dominate it. You saw somebody winning with timing, angles, patience, manipulation, memory, and pure basketball IQ. And honestly, that might be even more terrifying than prime athletic LeBron. Because this version doesn't just beat you, he understands exactly how you want to survive the possession. And then he takes that option away before you even realize it's gone. That is what happened to Houston. And to really understand why this series mattered so much, you have to start with what LeBron was supposed to be this season. For the first time in his career, he was not supposed to be the engine every single night. This Lakers team was built around Luka's creation and Austin Reeves' scoring versatility, while LeBron scaled back, preserved his body, and slid into more of an elder statesman role. He played 33.2 minutes a game in the regular season and averaged 29 points. 1 rebounds and 7.2 assists. That is still ridiculous for a 41-year-old. But the point is, he was finally being allowed to conserve himself for later. And the plan worked. The Lakers went 53-29. They won the Pacific. Everything was lining up exactly the way it was supposed to. Then April 2 hit, and everything changed. Luka went down with a grade 2 left hamstring strain. Austin Reeves went down too. The Lakers didn't just lose talent. They lost the structure of their season. They lost the 2 guys this entire offense had gradually been built around. Luka averaged 33.5 inches the regular season. And suddenly that entire version of the Lakers was gone. Even now, heading into the Thunder series, Luka still hasn't had a real status change. And Reuters reported he isn't expected back before at least Game 5. So when people talk about LeBron stepping up, I actually think that undersells it. He didn't just step up, he had to drag the team back into an older version of itself on the fly. That's what he meant when he basically said it was back to the old ways. And against Houston, that did not mean turning into 2018, LeBron in the obvious way. It did not just mean 40-point explosions and bulldozing everybody downhill. It meant something smarter than that. It meant reading the entire geometry of the series. That's where the second script really gets to the heart of it. Because Houston had the better legs, they had more youth. They had more burst on the perimeter. On paper, they looked like the kind of team that should make life miserable for an old star carrying too much responsibility. But LeBron kept beating them where youth usually cannot help you. He beat them in anticipation. He beat them in recognition. He beat them in the tiny half-second decisions that determine whether a possession becomes a layup, a corner 3, a turnover, or a dead possession with 6 seconds left on the clock. That's why this series was never really about can LeBron still score. Of course he can still score. The deeper story was, can he still think the game faster than everybody else on the floor? And against Houston, the answer was yes. Absolutely yes. You could see it in the way he attacked switches. Houston kept trying to survive certain matchups, especially when smaller defenders or compromised help were involved. But LeBron never rushed. He would wait. He would hold the possession for just a beat longer, force the defense to reveal what it wanted, and then hit the exact pressure point it was trying to hide. That's the detail people miss when they just say, he controlled the game. He didn't control it by speed. He controlled it by making Houston show its hand first, and once Houston showed that hand, he remembered it. That's what separates an old great player from an old all-time great one. A normal veteran sees a coverage. LeBron stores it. Then 5 minutes later, or the next game, or the next quarter, he punishes the counter before the counter even fully happens. That's why the script about his mind matters so much. Because this wasn't random veteran savvy. This was systematic. This was LeBron treating the series like an exam he had already studied for. One possession. He'd read the low man, leaning too far toward the roller and fire the skip pass. Next time, he'd fake that same read and hit the corner. Then later, he'd use that expectation against Houston and cut behind the defense instead. That's not just playmaking. That's manipulation. And the cruelest part for Houston was that every time they tried to adjust, LeBron was already on to the next thing. That's why this series felt less like the Rockets getting physically worn down and more like them getting mentally dissolved. And look, let's be fair here. Houston was not some joke opponent. This was a 52-30 team. This was a real contender profile on paper. They had size, athleticism, scoring, and a defense built to bother you across multiple positions. The Rockets weren't supposed to be some feel-good first-round stepping stone. That's what makes this so damaging for them and so impressive for LeBron. Because LeBron didn't beat a weak team, he beat a team that was younger, deeper, and in theory better equipped to survive a war of attrition. And he did it while the Lakers were still waiting on reinforcements that never fully arrived. That is where the first script had the right instinct, even if it leaned a little too hard into GOAT debate theatrics. The real power of this story is not that LeBron gave us one more debate segment. It's that he gave us another example of something no one else in league history has really done in this form. At Patruzec, și unu. He's not hanging on. He's still dictating playoff basketball. There's a huge difference between those two things. We've seen old legends contribute before. Kareem did it. Duncan aged well. There have been smart old stars who still had value. But being valuable is not the same thing as being the guy who bends a playoff series around his own understanding of the game. That's what LeBron just did. And when people hear that, they instantly go to the numbers. They say, okay. But what did he average? What were the shooting splits? What was the usage? Those things matter. Sure, but honestly, the numbers almost undersell the story. Because this series was about leverage more than volume. It was about knowing when to push the pace and when to hold the game still. It was about knowing when Houston was hiding a weak link. It was about spotting the moment a defender turned his head. It was about back cuts, delayed rolls, off-ball timing, and those ugly little veteran plays that don't look like domination until you realize they've decided the entire possession. That's why I actually think the best way to describe this series is not, LeBron turned back the clock. That phrase is too easy, too lazy. This wasn't old LeBron becoming young again. This was old LeBron, weaponizing everything that age has taught him. He doesn't jump as high. He doesn't explode every trip. He doesn't play the regular season like a man trying to prove he's still 28. But what he has now is something younger stars still spend years chasing: total command of the hidden parts of the game. And against Houston, those hidden parts became the series. The other thing I loved from the second script is that it treats LeBron almost like a grandmaster instead of a superhero. That's the right framing. Because once you watch the film closely, the big story stops being wow, he's still athletic enough. No. The big story becomes, Why does he always seem to know the answer a beat before everyone else? That's the scary part. And it's also why this matters moving forward. Because the Rockets series is over now. Lakers won it 4-2. They moved on. Austin Reeves was only partially available. Luka still hasn't returned. And now Oklahoma City is next. That's a much harder problem. But the Houston series told us something that matters way beyond one matchup. If LeBron can still mentally control a playoff series like this at 41, then every team that sees the Lakers on the bracket still has to solve him first, and that's the part that should worry the rest of the West. Because Father Time has clearly taken things from him. But the one thing it still hasn't taken is the thing that might matter most in May. His feel, his preparation, his discipline, his instinct for the exact weak spot in your defense. And once a player like that has seen enough basketball, enough coverages, enough playoff pressure, enough mistakes, enough counters, he becomes something different. He stops reacting to the game. He starts arriving there first. That's what Houston ran into. Not vintage LeBron in the flashy sense. Something more annoying. Something more inevitable. Something almost worse. A version of LeBron James that no longer needs to beat the game with force because he understands the game too deeply to let it stay complicated. And that, honestly, is why this run hit different. Not because it was sentimental. Not because he's 41 and we all feel nostalgic. Not even because it helped the GOAT case in some loud debate show way. It hit different because it reminded everybody that basketball genius ages better than basketball violence. And when that genius still belongs to LeBron James, you can lose Luka. You can limit Austin. You can throw a younger contender at him in round one. And somehow he still walks out of the series looking like the guy who understood everything first. That is not normal. That is not supposed to happen. And yet with LeBron, somehow, it keeps happening anyway.